This is your educational access channel, BPS 21.
Today we're going to talk about making movies. And we have 3 filmmaking students here with us. There's George, Todd, and Sarah. And they have just finished working on a movie for the filmmaking class. And I've asked them here today to tell about their experiences. One of the things that students are always concerned about is, how do we get an idea? How is it that we can come up with something that's going to look good on film? Can you students recall how we got started on the class movie?
Well, we kind of brainstormed at first. We all got together and we thought we saw movies of what other classes had done.
Okay, so we looked at some films from the past. And then what did we do then?
And then, like, once we got, like, a solid idea, we were going to do, like, a sad story or a love story. Then we just thought we were going to do, like, a scary story.
Okay, you wanted to do a scary story for the class then. Had we talked about doing a love story?
Yeah, well, we weren't sure what we were going to do. I mean, when we got together and worked as a group.
Did you bring in some suggestions? Do you remember doing that?
Yeah, well, some kids brought in some suggestions, like what to do, like when we saw the other classes' movies from a couple of years before us. We just picked ideas from that.
Okay. And do you remember any of the other ideas that we had? Some of the ones before we decided on the one that we did? No.
I just remember we wanted to do a scary.
You wanted to do a scary
And
one.
we came up with a couple ideas and then voted. And
Okay. So it was kind of for in our case, a process of voting on some of the ideas that we talked through. Do you remember how we arrived at the title for our movie, or what was the idea that we had before we actually got our script written out? What did we want to do with this one?
Well, it's hard to remember. We thought of like a Dr. Jekyll and
That's
Mr.
right.
Hyde.
Okay, we were going to do Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, weren't we? So what we were working on then was really an adaptation, but it didn't turn out to be just like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde did it.
that's why we wanted to change a little, get some humor. So we used the cheerleaders or pom-pom girls instead of the guys.
Sarah says they're girls.
Instead of just
So that we really didn't have a Dr. Jekyll. In fact, our Dr. Jekyll was
Jackie.
Jackie
Jackie
Jekyll. Yeah,
and
so we had
Hyde.
Jackie Jekyll and Ms. Hyde, didn't we?
Yeah.
Ms. Hyde. And as I recall, we had several variations. Do you remember at first we thought maybe we'd use 2 guys,
Yeah.
And then we had a
started
guy and a girl.
and then a guy and a girl. Yeah, that's how we ended up. We talked about 2 girls, I think, too, at one point, didn't we? And ended up. Why do you think we decided to have a guy and a girl playing the?
give a guy and a girl in the class an opportunity to act.
Okay.
It was more original too.
Yeah.
It was
I think it was a little more original, a little variation on an old theme, wasn't it? Okay, after we had our idea, then we worked on the scripts, and we divided our class into groups at this point. You remember working in groups and in writing the script. Each group responsible then for writing the script and seeing that particular part was filmed. Do you remember how we chose our main actors?
I think the class pretty much decided on.
Yeah. Right. I think you were drafted, weren't you, George?
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a very unusual role to play in this movie. And Sarah, you got to be Jackie. And Todd, you had a part too, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just like a boyfriend, and yeah, it was pretty fun, I guess. I didn't really have a choice. The class really picked it.
Okay. So when it's a class project, then because of that fact, we all cooperate and we work the way that the class decides that, well, that's fine. Now we went into the actual filming of the movie. Do you remember any of the problems that we had in the filming?
Yeah, we needed to use Mr. Wallendorf in his office, but he wasn't available, so we used Charlie Scott in his office.
Okay, so we had to make a last minute
The
substitution.
last
in there.
second we got
Yeah.
him to.
Yeah, were you involved in asking Mr. Wallendorf, the principal, to, you weren't in that part?
Also, we had a with we were filming a scene in the science room, and then we didn't get the whole thing in, or else we had to film some more. We had to go back in there and get it again, and
We had to reshoot a shot,
just
and no one was in the science room, and so we had to wait a while, and had a custodian open it, and then we had to reshoot it.
Yeah, what was the matter with the first shot?
It was out of focus. The
Okay,
ending.
a little bit too dark.
It's another shot that was out of focus too, when we had to shoot the fire alarm.
Okay, the scene with the fire alarm was out of focus, so we had to go back and redo a couple of scenes there. Was there anything else that we had some problems with? You remember? Sarah, I think something funny happened to you when you were drinking that the evil spirits. Remember that?
Oh yeah,
What was that?
it was a mixture, and it wasn't supposed to. I wasn't supposed to drink it, and I ended up drinking it because I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
How did
so-
it taste?
Like a dirty container with lemonade in it.
Another problem we had was it wasn't really a problem, but we had to watch when we were filming outside in the hallways and outside scenes. We had to watch the people, like just the people that weren't in the class or weren't part of filming. We had to get them out of the way and parking lot.
Yeah,
and
I
stuff.
guess that always is a problem. And one of the requirements that we have for our class movie is that we film on school property. And we do our movies during the class time at Seaholm. So that kind of limits us as the setting goes. And of course, when we're out in the hall and when George is dressed up as a pom-pom girl, you are likely to have a crowd around. So we did have to be careful as far as having people walking into our movie, those that were not supposed to be in it. So that's true. That was a problem sometimes.
Something to watch out for.
Yeah, and I guess we were filming too. It was one of the lunch hours. So there were more kids out in the hall than usual.
More
And
distractions.
then when
too.
they saw George dressed up in a pom-pom outfit, everyone was crowding around him and jumping around.
Just
Did you
more
hear
distractions.
about that, George, from your friends? No,
A little bit.
a little bit. I think maybe more than a little bit. Yeah, but that was a lot of fun though. Were there any other problems that you can think of that we had? After we got the film put together, then we did our editing. How did that part go?
Oh, that was pretty good. Everyone got a chance to learn how to edit. And, I thought it was really fun. Nobody really knew how to do it. And then, now everybody in the class knows how to edit.
Okay, so everyone
And it was
got it.
good that everyone got a chance to
Everyone had a chance to do it too.
and help.
Mm-hmm. And another thing I believe that maybe you people found out too about the movie was that we did not necessarily have to shoot the scenes in sequence, did we?
Yeah.
No, 'cause you can edit them together
Uh-huh.
at different points.
And that's one reason why you need a good script to follow, because once you get your scenes all shot, and then it's kind of like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. And you put the pieces of your movie together, and there it is, finished. I think, speaking of the finished film, and as you look back now on your movie making experiences, what would you say was one of the valuable things that you learned, or what you learned about filmmaking?
Well, we got to learn how to use a camera, and I thought that was really neat. We got to learn how to work as a group.
In using the camera, Todd, had you ever used a movie camera before?
I don't think anyone really had in the class, maybe 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, there were a few, I believe. How about
Yeah.
you, George? Had you-
I've used one before, but not in the same way that we had made a movie once, me and my friends, and we used it much. I don't know. The camera at school was, we just took it more seriously, and I don't know.
Okay,
It was a little more complicated.
okay, so that we
Wasn't
had a little more involved
Yeah,
in
with
our
the school.
procedure and
Yeah.
doing a script. Did you have a script when you worked
No,
with your
when we did
friends?
it, we just made a movie, and we didn't even. I just thought it was a lot more involved for the school film.
Okay, all righty. How about you then, Sarah? Do you feel that you had any particular experience?
Well, I think we learned a lot of patience because, I mean, you had to get it right and you had to do things, you could do things over, but you kind of didn't really want to as
Okay.
much.
So all of you feel then it was a very worthwhile
Yeah.
thing to do. And were you satisfied with your movie when you saw it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
as long
pretty
as
good.
no one else
Was
sees it.
You ready to make another one?
Yep.
Okay, I think it would be a lot of fun now for our viewers if we had a chance to see your movie. And so we're going to look at it right now. Here is our class movie, The Adventures of Jackie Jekyll and Ms. Hyde.
One man come in the name of love. One man come and go. One man come to justify. One man to the world. There's got to be a better way. Say it again. There's got to be a better way. Just say that. Why is the way you're on? Always all away. Without things away from me. Yeah. Is all away. Without things away from me. Then no rest.
This is your public school connection, BPS Channel 21.
Today, we're going to talk about script writing. And I have three students with me who have just finished working on their class movie. And there's Chris over there, and Suzanne, and Dave. How'd you feel about making this class movie, Chris?
Well, I thought it was a really good experience. I mean, I've made movies before with a few other friends outside of school, but I mean, when I started taking the film making class, I didn't know like how to make a script up and all that. And basically,
It was one thing that we really put a lot of time on. And Suzanne, how did you feel about the class movie? Did you have any movie making experience before?
I haven't had any movie making experience before, but I thought it was a challenge to do because of all the work that we put into it. The scripts took a lot of time, and then when we went to film it, there was so much work that had to be done.
That's right. Dave, what about you?
Absolutely none experience.
No experience?
I had to made the scenes. We had to have everybody working together, everybody on the camera. So the scripts were necessary for making the movie. Otherwise, we would have been out in the cold.
And our movie, do you remember the title of our movie?
Escape from Seaholm.
Yeah, there it is up there. I think you saw it when you came in. We saved the title so that we could. Do you remember why we saved the title?
Basically, just to speak about what type of film it was and
Okay.
the different techniques we used.
And also to check, remember when our film came back, to be sure that we got the scene with the title. I think we used it a couple of places. Yeah. And Escape from Seaholm, that makes it sound kind of like a prison movie, doesn't it? Yeah, what were some of the things that we did to bring across this idea that we had a prison here?
Well, we looked around the school for many places where they had cages and bars and other dark lighted places, so we'd know what looks like a prison and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm. So we do have some scenes then that do have the bars and yeah. Do you remember any particular problems that we had in any of the movie or?
Due to the dark places, we didn't have much light for filming these, and we wouldn't have much detail.
Okay, we did have some dark spots there. I don't know, I think that looked kind of good though. It gave us.
It turned out good because like a haze, like
yeah,
like a
gave
prison.
us the atmosphere. Yeah, windows. Do you remember some of the scenes and bringing in props and the kids? What were some of the problems that we had there? Do you remember anything?
Well, we had the guards, and each guard wore the coat and had guns, but from day to day, they couldn't remember who the guards were.
Yeah, so we did have some problems lining that up, didn't we? Do you remember anything else that gave us some problems?
Well, the first day we couldn't get into the cage. We had to get the custodian to come over and unlock it for us so we could get in there. It was a perfect spot. It was all cement and just a flat ground and nothing in there. It looked just like a prison with a fence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a problem too, getting the locations of where we were going to do this, because we were trying to get this prison look, so we had to be careful about where we went. And I think maybe it was your scene, Suzanne, a secret meeting. Did you have that with the secret meeting? Yeah, you had some problems, didn't you, trying to figure out where to have the meeting?
We chose many places to put it, but some were too small, others were too big, and the lighting wasn't good. The room just didn't fit.
So we did finally end up somewhere, though, and it worked out.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, worked out okay. But I promised that today we were going to talk about script writing, and we've done a little preliminary discussion, I think maybe we should get on with our tips on script writing. Even before the movie begins, that is, even before you get your camera ready and put the film in and start filming, there's a lot of work that has to be done. Now, in our class, we started out, if you remember, with just a general discussion about what kind of a movie should we do, and we decided we wanted the prison movie and the Escape from Seaholm. Then we talked about the ideas that we would like to see in the movie and divided up into groups. I think each of you were in a group of about 4 or maybe 5 students. Each group then was responsible for writing the script. And I'm going to show, I brought along the card that we used for script writing, and this is what it looks like. You'll notice that there is a picture at the bottom of the page, and this is our typical card that we call a planning card. And there are 6 items that should be on each planning card. First is the order of the scene, and that is whether the scene is first, second, third, fourth. This is important because quite often we will film our scenes out of order, and our planning cards help us then when we do our editing, so we'll remember which comes first. So up in the upper right-hand corner there, in this particular shot, you'll see it's scene 2. Then the next item on your planning card is what the scene will show. And that is a drawing. And I always tell the students that they do not have to be artists to make this drawing. In fact, just a stick figure will show what's going on. So the drawing in the planning card in this illustration is a girl watering the flowers. Then the third thing that is to be shown on the planning card is what type of shot is needed, whether it's a close-up, a medium shot, or a long shot. And students, do you remember what I told you about working with Super 8? We needed to put in a lot of what?
Close-ups.
Close-ups, right. Because our Super 8 film is a small format, and unless we include a lot of close-ups, you won't see what's going on. So I think when we worked on our scripts, I emphasized that, and we did a lot of work putting the close-ups in so we could get it. All right, then after the type of shot, the fourth item is the background. Where does this scene take place? In the example that I'm showing here, this particular scene takes place in a garden, and it's a background shot. It shows flowers and that kind of thing. Then number 5 is the message of the scene. That is, what is happening here? And my sample planning card shows a girl watering the flowers in the garden. And then finally, point number 6, how long should the scene be? That is, how many seconds will it last? And this seemed to be the hardest for the students. How did you students figure out how long your scenes were going to be?
Random guessing.
Random guessing, that's one way. And I think you did a pretty good job there. And what's another way we can do
Sort
it?
of run through without filming.
Right.
Sort of count.
Kind of like a rehearsal. You can run through the action and get an idea of how long it will take. And of course, our scenes should be long enough to show whatever we intend to have happen. Okay, I think now I'll ask the students here to show you some samples from their scripts, and you can see just what happened between the time they wrote the script and the time the script was actually filmed. Okay, Suzanne, do you want to start? Show the part that you have.
This particular scene is where the students were planning their escape from the school, and this is a secret meeting where they had to figure out what they needed to get. And you can see the leader over here with the expressive face and pointing to the needs that they needed. They needed weapons, uniforms, and sheets to crawl out various windows. And we had to figure out how long this was actually going to take. That was kind of hard because we didn't know how long the girl was going to talk on it. And we chose to do a medium shot so we wouldn't show her whole figure there, and so you could see the shot, the signs.
Okay. How did it turn out? I believe you actually filmed that yourself, didn't you, Suzanne? Yeah. How did it turn out as far as following the script?
It turned out pretty good. We followed it exactly as it was supposed to be.
Okay, so that in that case, then your script and your actual filming was the same. Dave, what do you have to show us?
My scene is the one where the guard posts up on the wall, and we did this by him coming in from the opposite direction because there was not enough light.
Okay, so you, in effect, then you changed the first a little bit.
Yes, we did the lighting. Source of light came from the other side because there's doors over here and we needed as much light as possible.
Okay.
On this one, he came from this side over here and he came up and pinned up the rules on the board here, and then we panned him coming back off.
Okay.
This shot was taken in the library in front of the school.
Okay, so you actually then did a scene. It was pretty much like your planning car, except you had to make a change in direction.
In a couple of seconds over.
And a couple of seconds longer than you thought. And Chris, what do you have to show us?
Okay, well, on the script here, the group of students made where one of the students is walking down the hall, as you see here, and is chewing gum and throws it onto the floor. If you can see down here in the corner, we had run through it first to see how long it would take. We timed it at 5 seconds, and then dropping the gum took 3 seconds. And we had problems with the scenes here. It didn't work into our schedule, and so we just, we had it written out and everything, but we never used it in the film. And then we just have a picture here of the gum on the floor, and then here comes one of the guards walking down the hall. And then in scene 18 here, a close-up, we show the guard's foot stepping on the gum, and scene 19, he gets stuck in the expression on his face. He looks kind of mad.
He does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And actually, that is a delightful script, and it's too bad we couldn't work that sequence in, but it just didn't happen to fit in what we were doing. So we've shown today 3 examples of script writing, one in which the script was followed exactly, one in which some minor changes were made, and a third one that was not used at all. And all of this goes into filmmaking. And now, let's say, how about looking at our movie? Shall we show them the
Yeah,
movie?
yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
okay, let's take a look now at Escape from Seaholm.
Ever seen to have one of those days where it just seems like everybody's getting on your case, from your teacher all the way down to your best girlfriend? Well, I used to have this about all the time. I found a way to get out of it. Let me tell you about it. You have just in my bag. You better afraid. You don't ask my kids. I'm the boys on the Smoking it loud.
Great feature selection.
There was a friend of mine on murder. Judges gathered sales. Jury found him guilty. Even 16 years in hell. I spent right here. I ain't living alone. The victims rock from the chain gang. No need to change. I'm looking up at the sky. I'm gonna meet you. In the name of death, years. By another man. She was down, he was up. Had a gun in his hand. He was started bombing in the well. He was on the scream. Man, he was on the ground. What the whole where his wife got saying, what was
This is your educational access channel, BPS 21.
Today, we're going to talk about animation, and I have a student filmmaker here, Barrett Tripp. How are you, Barrett?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. How long have you been a filmmaker, Barrett?
Filmmaking since about the 7th grade. I wrote my first script back in about the 1st grade, but it wasn't until I got my first camera.
Grade. Whoa, that's a long time ago, isn't it? You said you got a camera. When did you get your first camera?
7th grade, I got it for Christmas, and it was just a basic camera.
Super 8?
Yeah.
And what did you like to make? What kind of movies did you do in those days?
Well, it was basically family movies that I made into movies, and then I started to get interested in animation, but my camera didn't have animation, so I experimented with just releasing the trigger just a little bit each time.
What kind of animation were you able to do that way?
It wasn't too much. I tried some clay animation, and that really didn't work out too well, but it was a start.
Well, then later, did you get another camera then?
It was about in the 10th grade, a couple of years ago. I went out and bought my own camera, and it has a single frame, which you need for animation, so I could do a lot more than I had earlier.
Yes. What is it about animation that you like? I know you've done several animated films.
It allows me to be a little bit more creative. There's not as many restrictions. I can make anything come to life, and I don't have to worry about actors showing up, and don't have to worry about directing them because I'm doing all of that myself.
I guess there are several different kinds of animation. Maybe we should talk a little bit about that. You mentioned clay animation. Yeah. How do you do the clay animation?
Well, you just you make a clay figure or whatever you want to animate, and it's just, you take the figure and move it a little bit each time, take a frame and move it some more, and you're making that clay figure come to life. You're recreating the film strip.
And let's see, usually people think about cartoons, you know, like Walt Disney when they think about animation. Have you done any cartoons or drawing?
I have done that. I did that just this past summer. I drew 110 frames.
Oh boy.
of a cartoon, and it ended up on screen time to be about 3 seconds. It was really quick, so I decided that's tough to do right now, but it is fun to do.
It takes a lot of patience.
It's very, very much.
Patience. What else have you animated?
I've done a lot of stuff, objects, pixelation. I moved stools across the floor, and I've peeled apples.
Boy, that sounds a little bit like magic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that when you're watching it, it appears that the apple just kind of peels by itself, unpeels.
An invisible man, almost.
An invisible man. Oh, yeah. I think maybe it would be interesting here to show our viewers what a animation might look like. That is how we set the camera up. And we have a camera here with us that we brought in from the film study class. Barrett mentioned that sometimes cameras don't single frame, and you'll see on the side here is this little place where you can put in your cable release, and this permits the camera to single frame. Here, I'll let Barrett play with this. You want to show us what you do now when you animate? Of course, we have the camera pointing right at your head. Let's point it out that way a little bit. Okay, what do you do now?
Now, you've already focused and you framed the object.
Okay, so it's important then, we'll assume that I'm focusing on an object out in the studio here, okay?
And what you do is you get, you film a little bit to lead in.
Okay. there. I've run my camera a little.
And now you can start the animation. So you'd reach over and move your object maybe an inch or so.
Okay, so let's say I'm going to do that chair. I'll ask the stagehand over there to move the chair a little bit, and then what?
And then you would take your cable release and just depress it maybe once or twice.
Okay.
And then the stagehand would move the chair again, and you press the cable release, and it's just a repeated process.
Okay, hey, that sounds pretty easy, doesn't it?
It is pretty easy.
What are some of the essentials? I noticed that we put a tripod under this camera.
Well, obviously you can't hold the camera in the exact same spot, because if it moves a little bit, when it comes out in the processing, it'll be very jiggled and moving around, so you need the tripod.
Okay. In fact, I would say the tripod is essential. You would have to have it, or some way to hold your camera steady. All right, what else, what other problems might we have with our animation?
I notice in my films, I don't film enough. But you're sitting there and you're filming for several hours, and you think, well, okay, I've done enough of that. But it goes so quick that you've only done maybe 2 seconds of film, but it's taking you 2 hours to do it. And sometimes you forget to focus, or even sometimes forget to press the cable release. You just continue to move it without pressing down the cable release.
Yeah, I've seen too that sometimes students get a little impatient, and if they're animating something, an object that they're moving, that sometimes they'll get their hand in the picture, and they'll get a picture of their hand.
I've done that several times.
You've done that?
Yeah.
And that's always a disappointment, because when you get your film back, then it's almost impossible to edit, because you don't really have extra frames that you can cut out. It's you know, you have to be very particular.
That's a problem when you're working with several people animating a film. You have to make sure that everybody's moved their part and that they're out of the way. Whereas when I work with myself, so I know that I'm out of the way because I'm behind the camera.
Yeah, that's true. So you would be behind the camera and you wouldn't have to worry. I think, as I recall, when we did that in class, when we were doing the scene from our class movie, that I told the person behind the camera to give directions. Like, I think he said, what was it? Get ready, move, and freeze.
Right.
And then when he said freeze, everyone had to be out of the picture except the person that was in the desk. Yeah. So you need some kind of signal there. You mentioned about how short the animation is after you do it. It might be well if we told people that our camera here on the Super 8 will run 18 frames per second. So if we're clicking like this, I've done 1 frame, and that's what, 1/18 of a second. Yeah. So when you're planning your time, if you know you want the movement to last 10 seconds,
you've got to do a lot of...
That's a lot of clicking, isn't it? A lot of clicking. Barrett, you used the word pixelation a little bit earlier when we were talking. Could you tell people just what is the difference between pixelation and animation?
Animation more is with the drawings, and clay animation fits into there, but pixelation is more objects, people or chairs, stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's always fun to do. I think kids especially like to do that. I can remember students doing pixelation, pretending to drive a car when they're sitting in a chair, and then they'll move the chair and they'll drive. That's kind of what we did, I think, in our caveman movie there. Or they might be seated on the floor and pretending they're driving there. I think the word comes from pixie, as far as playing little jokes or little magic. But maybe we should take a look at some of your movies right now. I know you brought some along for us. The first one that you did, or the first one of the group that you brought, was the clay animation, which is sometimes called claymation.
Right.
Your film's called what?
Harold.
Okay, let's take a look at Barrett's film now, or a scene from it, and here's Harold. And fun movie to make. Did you have any special problems when you made Harold?
Well, we had the hot lamps started to melt the clay a little bit, and soften it. So when he was walking, at times he would fall over or bend out of shape. So he jiggles around, and there were a few times where we did get a hand in. And other things that you didn't notice, my bedspread, you'd bump into it, and you would pick that up in the film, and just little things that you didn't notice.
So you did learn quite a bit then by making that movie. Would you try some claymation again?
Yeah, I think it's probably the most fun to do. Because it's almost like a cartoon, but you can make it go anywhere. In my house, it was interesting because the little clay boy was walking through my house.
The next film I think that we have here is one that you did for the filmmaking class.
Right.
And that one's called what?
After Closing.
After Closing. In that one you have billiard balls and you were doing some pixelation.
Right.
Let's take a look at that one right now. Here's some pixelation from After Closing. Well, I remember seeing that movie when you brought it into class, and I think your classmates enjoyed it. Now, what was your experience with that film? Was that more successful and easier to do?
It was easier to do because the balls didn't bend over like the clay figure did.
Well, that's true.
And they were easier to move because all you had to do was roll them forward. It was pretty easy to do. It took me a long time to do, and the choreography was difficult, figuring out exactly what to do in that one because I was moving so many balls. I had to make sure that I was moving each one.
Did you have some kind of a script or a checklist or something to determine where they were going?
Not really. I had it all up in my mind of what I was going to do and how long I wanted to do it.
But you did have it planned out as far as you know what was going to happen or where they were going to end up. Yeah, that's important, you know, to plan ahead so you know exactly where you're going, even with pixelation. All right, now I see that you're still working on your animation techniques.
Right.
What's the latest film now that you've done?
The latest film that I did was the cartoon. That was my latest experiment, was the drawing.
And then you also did some pixelation, I believe, in a haunted house.
Yeah.
Weren't you telling me about something like that?
It was sort of like a poltergeist movie. It was called The House on Worth Street. And that was an experiment. I tried a couple different techniques. And I, again, used the pixelation to slide stools across the floor.
So we're going to see objects moving mysteriously, and the poltergeist will be in there. Okay, let's take a look at that one right now. The House on Worth Street. Well, I certainly did like that one, and you had some very smooth movements in there. How did you manage that?
The experience really helped. I mean, I have become better acquainted with how far to move each object. It's just experience is you have to really have a lot of patience because you're not going to get it right the first time that you do animation. It's going to take a while.
Yes, and I think, that's good advice to give to anyone who wants to do animation. It does take a lot of patience. You have to be willing to devote the time to it. The technique is fairly simple, but it's the precision and the patience that really pay off. And I think you've done a fine job with the films in the past, Barrett. Do you plan to continue with your filmmaking?
Probably. I'd really like to get into some aspect of filmmaking. There's an awful wide variety of careers in filmmaking, so there's always a choice.
Well, that'll be great. Maybe someday we'll see your name up in lights when they run the credits.
I hope so.
I do too. And I do have a little surprise for you today.
What's that?
What's that? I've brought along the movie that you made with your group in class. Do you remember the Craven Caveman?
I remember that.
Yeah, and in that movie we did have a little pixelation. Remember the desk chase? And I thought it'd be kind of fun to show that movie. And this movie is a class effort. And now let's take a look at the Craven Caveman. I'm sure seeing that movie certainly brought back memories for you, Barrett. And I do want to thank you for coming
Thank you.
today and wish you luck in your career as a filmmaker.
Thank you.
And we'll be hearing from you, I'm sure, in the future. And now I want to say goodbye to the viewers and thank you for listening.